Hey everyone, welcome to the series of 9 videos focusing on all aspects of study skills. If you ever struggle with taking notes in class or in lecture, then this video might just be the one for you. Now this video is made possible with full credits to the amazing crash course that Thomas Frank has done over on the Crash Course Study Skills series. I've compiled all of the important information over there in that series and displayed this in a powerful mind map for you as I add my thoughts on my own journey studying to become a pharmacist and become a doctor, and now being a study coach at Study Smarter Academy. We've got heaps of information to cover, so let's dive right into this. With this particular section on taking notes, there are 4 parts of information that we're going to talk about. First of all, taking notes, what types of information that we're going to cover, what's that and what's that, and we're going to cover the mode of taking notes, 2 modes of taking notes that we're going to talk about, and then next we're going to move on to the systems, the common systems that students use when they take notes as well. These 3 methods that we'll be talking about, and then we're going to be talking about some general tips about taking notes in general. So we're going to be using our pen, doing a bit of scribbles. My handwriting actually isn't the best, so at the end of this I'll also give you a all full typed up version of this and a link for you to download, and you can also print it out and share it with your friends if that is what's going to help you with your own studies and taking notes. So let's dive right into this. So first of all, diving into the mode of taking notes, the 2 most common mode of taking notes is actually using paper versus computer. There's also a lot of debate around these 2 areas, so we just want to break it down and actually analyze the pros and cons of each so you can make an own informed decision about which one to use, and you can modify your techniques a bit if that is something that you're already doing at the moment. Before we dive into the debate of computer versus paper, we first of all need to understand the types of information that gets presented to us. So the teacher is going to say a bunch of words and convey some information to you. What types of information is there, which is our section up here. Now types of information here is going to be 2 types. Here we've got, first of all, is the syntax, which is really the sounds of the words, like the pronunciation and the sound that's coming towards you. And then all of these syntax, pronunciations, and how the words sound together makes the meaning of the information. So now you might ask, why do you actually need to know this? So now getting back to our debate of paper versus computer. Now first of all, talking about the computer side of things. When a lot of students actually use computer to type at the moment, they actually go into a passive mode. Yes, they can actually transcribe a lot of stuff, but because our working memory only has a limited amount of slots that can process information. So here, if you focus on here, we've got our teacher teaching us the exam material, then it actually gets shoved to our working memory, which has about maybe 4 to 7 slots at once. So if you're trying to convert all of what your teacher is saying into the piece of notes that you're typing on computer, so if you're putting all your focus on what the teacher is saying in terms of exam material and information coming at you and trying to process this with your limited working memory to transcribe everything they said, you're actually going to overload these 4 to 7 slots. So instead of focusing on the meaning, the only thing that you can focus on now is the syntax, or really the pronunciation, the words that are coming in. You're actually not really processing what is coming at you. So that is actually one big pitfall when students decide to take computer notes. You often hear some people, or even some research articles, suggest that paper notes is the way to go. Why is that? It's because it forces you to write slow. It forces you to pay attention to the actual meaning of the concepts. Because when you write, you are definitely not going to be able to write as fast as someone's talking. So you're forced to actually try and synthesize information. So in this limited amount of working memory that you have right here, you're actually going to use this 4 to 7 slots of memory to actually try to process information and write down in your own words or synthesized words on what you actually understand with this information that is thrown at you at the moment in class. So in turn, you're actually focusing much more on the meaning of the words, which is right here. So there are definitely pros and cons of both, but what you can really try is, even with computer, you can actually try and do what the paper notes is doing. You can actually be typing much less, but actually try to synthesize the information in your own words. Or even better, you can actually try to draw up something. What I'm doing right here is to try and create relationships, try to draw a mind map of yourself and see what's related to each other. Draw pictures, maybe use less words. These are all really effective ways of actually trying to organize information to give you this higher level of understanding, so it actually sticks into your memory much better, which is this process of converting your working memory to long-term memory, which we will be covering in the next upcoming series on memory. So after understanding the mode and the types of information and this debate about paper versus computer, then we're going to talk about the common systems that students can use. So the first one that you can consider is the out outline method, which is basically literally how I scoped out all of this information from the crash course summary, added in also my own tips as well, and to restructure all of this information to present it to you in a different way. By restructuring all this information, I have now learned a lot as well myself and understood all of this information so I can present it and teach it to you, which is definitely one of the best ways of learning as well. Next, we've got the infamous Cornell note-taking method, which is covered in a lot of videos. I've also made one here. I'll link it to the video as well. But essentially, the idea behind this is that you are becoming more active when you're taking notes, and it forces you to summarize information, to organize information, which is the higher level of learning, and to encode information into your brain. So trying to break down your Word document, or if you're taking on paper, into 3 sections. You've got the main section, which is how you normally take your notes, and you jot down all the information and try to synthesize it in your own words. Then on the side, which is the Q column, this is where you try to organize the big topics, the big headings, try to jot down potential questions that can come up. You're trying to be actively thinking in class already. So this is the first active step that you can be doing. And then here down the bottom is really towards the end of the lecture or after you go home. This is the summary section where you actually cover up the whole of the top part and you actually just focus on the bottom part, and you can see how much you can actually recall. And this actually gives you a really good understanding of whether you have actually understood this information, because if you're able to write it in your own words in a summary section, this is really the best litmus test that you understand the information. But if you leave this summary section blank, that means that you really need to spend time going back and actually trying to read around the topic and try to explain these concepts to yourself again to make sure you can write this summary. And this is why this is a really effective note-taking method for a lot of students. And then the third method we talk about is the mind mapping method, which is ironically what we're doing here right now. This is probably also one of the better ways of actually taking notes, reducing the amount of words that you're using, but actually try to find relationships between the meanings, categorizing things. For example, here, mode of information, types of information. For example, if you were to go and watch that crash course video on taking notes, you may have a completely different mind map than me, or you may have a similar mind map to me, because we organize information in the same way. But being able to put all that information into information that relates to one another, you have now again used these higher learning methods to actually get this information inside your brain. For example, now I'm going to teach you once, and actually this is going to be ingrained in my brain for much longer. So the requirement for you to actually come back and review this, to do that spaced repetition, is actually stretched much longer. And then last but not the least, we're going to look at the general tips of actually taking notes right here. So with the general tips, the first one I agree a lot that crash course has talked about is to look at the syllabus. But later on we're going to cover also this in the how to study for exam sections, that we know that the syllabus and all the learning objectives that come from it actually translates to a lot of exam questions. So it actually really makes sense to look back at these syllabus and also pay attention to the study guides and review materials, because all of this is high yield information that can give you hints on what the exam questions are going to come up and what they are going to be like. The next tip that they talked about was also the types of questions that can be on the test. So if you look back at previous tests, past exam papers, you can request this maybe from your lecturer, or you can try and search online or from previous students as well. You can try to look back at these questions on the test. All of these gives us a trend and information and a level of difficulty of the questions in the past, and what level of preparation you need to do to answer these questions. All of the top 3 tips here relates to how you're able to analyze and predict the level of difficulty of exam questions that are going to come up. And then next is a very obvious one, is pay extra attention when your teacher or lecturer actually says this is important. This is important. And there are so many people that may have actually fallen asleep, or may not have attended the lecture, or may have watched the lecture too quick and actually missed this. A lot of times when they actually give you hints on what's going to come up in the exams, a lot of times they're trying to help you and not trying to trip you up. So make sure you pay attention to this. And then last but not least, try to explain it in your own words, because if you're just transcribing everything, writing all these notes in your teacher's words and passively just listening, you're not actually learning. So the information is actually not going into your brain as well. So even if you write all of this information onto a piece of flashcard, you're going to end up with thousands and thousands of flashcards that you have to review again and again and again, and it's going to be a waste of time. Because if you're able to summarize, for example, the note-taking 10-minute video into just a couple of boxes, and it's deeply now ingrained into your mind. So if you shut this all off and try to draw this mind map yourself, are you able to explain it in your own words? Are you able to recreate this yourself? If you are, then this information information is now yours and no one can take it away from you. And the time that you require to review this material again is greatly reduced. And that is how I teach inside Study Smarter Academy my students to actually study smarter and not harder. So you can actually regain more free time and do things that you love and still keep up with all your grades, all your assignments, and still have a balanced life. So I hope this video has been helpful for you. Make sure to click the description below to get the link and the completed version of this, and you can share it with your friends as well. Make sure to share this video if you liked it, click the like and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.